what if achieving, like, absolute divine enlightenment wasn't some mysterious, abstract spiritual journey?
Right, which it almost always is.
Yeah, exactly. What if, instead of all that vague poetry and, metaphors about finding your inner light, you were handed a rigid, mathematically precise instruction manual?
Like a literal step-by-step guide.
Yeah, like insert peg A, tighten screw B, and congratulations, you are a god.
It's wild because it completely flips our usual understanding of transcendence totally on its head, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Because when we look at global esoteric traditions, the path to the divine is, well, it's almost always portrayed as highly individualized
Yeah.
and super ambiguous.
Very, very ambiguous.
Right, so finding a text that just strips away all that abstract stuff in favor of a literal roadmap is, I mean, it's incredibly rare.
Which brings us perfectly to the source material for today's deep dive. We're unpacking translated excerpts from this philosophical text called The Lecture Record from Zhefeng. And this document lays out this highly specific, incredibly detailed blueprint for human beings to completely transcend their mortal state.
Completely.
And just to set the stage for you listening, while neither of us are, packing our bags for a celestial realm just yet, exploring the architecture of this belief system is just such a fascinating exercise.
Oh, absolutely. It tells us so much about human desire and, well, our endless search for structure.
Right, and what we actually consider to be the ultimate finish line of existence.
Yeah, and the foundational context here is essential, I think. This text is anchored in the philosophy of Lifechanyuan.
Okay, right.
And Lifechanyuan isn't just like a solitary meditative practice that you do in your living room. It's a structured community. It's an entire paradigm combining communal living with this really profound cosmic ambition.
So the author, Feng, isn't just offering advice on how to be a slightly more patient person on a Tuesday.
No. The text maps out a literal cosmic geography.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the finish line that the text sets up is staggering.
It really is.
The goal isn't just, finding enlightenment on Earth. The ultimate objective is becoming a super celestial being.
Right.
And physically, or I guess maybe metaphysically, relocating to this realm called the Celestial Islands continent.
Exactly. But as you mentioned, there's a geography to this. You don't just beam up to the final level immediately.
You can't just skip ahead.
Far from it. The text outlines this strict requirement known as the triple jump.
The triple jump.
Yeah. So you begin in the mortal world. Then your first jump takes you into the 1,000-year world.
Okay.
Your second jump brings you to the 10,000-year world. And then the third, final jump lands you on the Celestial Islands continent.
So it's very staged, very specific.
Extremely specific. And the crucial distinction to keep in mind, as we go through these steps, is the absolute nature of this promise.
What do you mean?
Well, you aren't meant to just evolve into a better human. The text demands that you mutate into something entirely unrecognizable to your current self.
Wow. Mutate. Okay, well, that brings us to the runway for this first jump, because before you can even think about unlocking these supernatural realms, the text demands that you clear out the immediate clutter of your daily mind.
Yes, the baseline requirement.
Right. Step one to enter the 1,000-year world is you must completely abandon all trouble, pain, sorrow, worry, and fear.
All it.
And you just have to live a purely happy, joyous, free, and blessed life.
Which sounds lovely, but what's fascinating here is the text's specific diagnostic language for all that human suffering.
Yeah, it's very distinct.
It argues that annoyance and fear aren't just, natural reactions to a stressful world. They are symptoms of, and this is a quote, the imperfection of consciousness.
The imperfection of consciousness.
Exactly. And the translation uses the strikingly poetic metaphor, labeling these negative emotions the weeds of one's soul garden.
The weeds of one's soul garden. I mean, it is a beautiful visual, right?
It really is.
Imagining your mind as this exotic plot of land that's just completely choked by dandelions and thorny vines.
And you have to clear them out.
Right. You can't plant the seeds of a celestial life until you pull the roots of your earthly anxiety. But I have to push back hard on the psychology of this text for a second.
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
Telling a human being to simply, abandon worry is, it's like telling a fish to abandon water.
It feels impossible.
We are evolutionarily wired to scan for threats and feel fear. So how does the author expect someone to just bypass millions of years of biology by deciding to be happy?
Well, it's interesting you say that because the author, Sweffing, actually addresses that psychological affliction pretty directly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The text doesn't pretend that this is some easy, solitary flip of a switch. It admits that eliminating mortal troubles while living in the conventional secular world is, frankly, nearly impossible.
Okay, so it does acknowledge reality.
It does, and this is exactly where the mechanics of the Lifechanyuan community come into play.
Ah, right, the communal aspect.
Right. The text promises that achieving this weed-free mind happens very rapidly if you live within their specific communal structure, which they refer to as home.
So wait, they're essentially saying that spiritual transcendence requires a literal structural environmental change.
Pretty much.
It's not just, meditating harder in your bedroom. It's actually changing your zip code and your socioeconomic reality.
That is the mechanical lever of this first jump, yeah. Think about where most of our daily weeds actually come from.
Right. Bills, stress.
Exactly. They stem from financial insecurity or isolating family dynamics, societal pressures, just the constant friction of capitalist survival.
So they just remove that friction.
That's the idea. In the Lifechanyuan communal model, resources are shared. Traditional nuclear family structures are dissolved in favor of a collective.
Wow.
And the daily struggle for individual survival is supposedly removed entirely. The text is arguing a very practical point here. You cannot pull the weeds of anxiety if society keeps throwing new seeds into your garden every single morning.
Okay, that actually fundamentally shifts how we view enlightenment.
How so?
Well, it's treating anxiety not as some personal spiritual failing, but almost as a structural disease that you cure through communal isolation.
Yes, a structural cure.
By outsourcing your physical survival to the home, your mind is suddenly freed up to stop panicking.
Exactly.
But okay, let's follow that thread. Let's say you do it, you move in, you pull the weeds, your soul garden is pristine,
Yeah.
and you officially enter the 1,000-year world.
Okay.
You aren't done.
Not at all. Not even close.
Right. Because shedding negative emotions is really just returning to neutral.
Yes, just the baseline. The second jump moving to the 10,000-year world requires a radical alteration in how your newly weeded mind actually interacts with external reality.
And the primary rule of this realm is that the mind must not abide in form.
Right.
Must not abide in form. I mean, that sounds incredibly dense. Is that just a mandate to stop caring about physical objects, like giving up your stuff?
It goes so much deeper than physical objects. Not abiding in form means completely detaching from all rigid expectations, secular identities, and societal attachments.
Okay, so detaching from the ego, essentially.
Basically, yeah. To exist in the 10,000-year world, the text dictates you must follow predestined relationships. You have to remain entirely carefree and maintain a constant condition of pleasure.
And the distinction the translation makes there is so critical.
But real pleasure.
Yeah. It explicitly separates pleasure from joy. It states that mere joy isn't enough. You need a condition of pleasure.
The psychological difference between those two words in this specific context is profound.
How so?
Well, think about joy. Joy is reactionary, right? It's a spike on a graph caused by some external stimulus.
Like you get a promotion or you eat a really great meal.
Exactly, you feel joy. But it fades and you return to your baseline. Pleasure in the 10,000-year world is the baseline itself.
Oh, wow.
It is this constant, unbothered equilibrium. And the obstacle to this, according to the text, is secular social conditioning.
Because it tracks us.
Right? It constantly traps us in this cycle of seeking temporary joy and then suffering its inevitable loss.
So what does this all mean for the individual's agency, though? Because I'm looking at the core logic of this second step, and I'm hitting a massive paradox.
The predestination part.
Yeah. The text demands that you be completely 100% carefree. But in the same exact breath, it mandates that you must follow predestined relationships.
Right.
How do those two concepts coexist? If I am following a pre-written destiny, I am literally bound to a script that feels like the exact opposite of ultimate freedom.
I know, it really does. And that paradox is really the crucible of the entire Lifechanyuan philosophy.
Okay.
To the secular mind, destiny sounds like a prison. But the text resolves this by basically redefining what freedom actually is.
How do they redefine it?
It argues that following predestined relationships isn't about blind obedience. It's about expanding your internal nature by removing all resistance to the inevitable.
So it's the difference between fighting reality and aligning with it.
Yes. Imagine you are dropped into a massive, rapidly flowing river.
All right.
If your definition of freedom is the ability to swim upstream against the current, well, You're going to spend your entire life exhausted, stressed, and ultimately you won't get very far.
Right, you're trapped by your own resistance.
Exactly. But if you turn around and swim with the current, if you surrender to the river's destiny, you suddenly harness the immense speed and power of the water.
You're riding it.
You are entirely carefree precisely because you have stopped fighting the flow of the universe.
Ah, that actually makes the must not abide in form concept click into place for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, because your form is your stubborn insistence on swimming upstream. It's your ego saying, I want the river to go this way.
exactly.
Once you let that go, you achieve that constant equilibrium of pleasure. You are just riding the wave.
And once you have surrendered utterly to that cosmic current, you are finally primed for the third and ultimate jump.
The big one. This brings us to the Celestial Islands continent, the final stage. You become a super celestial being.
The pinnacle.
According to the text, the soul at this stage is completely unconstrained by human emotion. You don't just live in nature, you live as nature.
Yes.
The text describes this being as incredibly flexible, tactful, highly sensitive, and capable of instantaneous responses to any stimuli.
The author refers to the universe at this supreme level as the dance of nature.
The dance of nature.
The supercelestial being experiences infinite changes flowing through them in a perpetual blissful state.
So you are no longer observing the river, You are the water.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, we've been swimming in deep, abstract philosophical waters, right? We're talking about soul gardens and cosmic currents and emotional detachment.
Very abstract, yeah.
And then suddenly, right at the absolute pinnacle of this journey, the text drops a highly specific, almost gamified detail.
The powers.
Yes. It states that upon reaching this realm, you acquire exactly 64 magical powers. It is such an abrupt shift, right? Going from abstract emotional philosophy to this quantifiable set of supernatural abilities, it's jarring to modern sensibilities.
Extremely jarring. Like, why 64?
Well, we have to look at the cultural and philosophical roots of that specific number. 64 is not just some random figure pulled out of thin air.
It instantly makes me think of the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes.
That is the exact parallel.
Really?
Yes. The I Ching is composed of 64 hexagrams, which essentially represent all the possible permutations of change in the universe.
So it's like a mathematical map of reality.
Precisely. By stating that the supercelestial being possesses 64 magical powers, the text isn't saying you get like 64 different spells like a video game character.
Right.
It is symbolically stating that you have achieved perfect mastery over every single possible permutation of the natural world.
So you have an instantaneous, perfect response to all 64 states of existence.
Exactly.
If the universe is the dance of nature, having the 64 powers basically means, every single step of the choreography flawlessly.
Yes. But this raises a really important question about the structural safety of the text's internal logic.
What do you mean by structural safety?
Well, Xu Feng establishes a totally non-negotiable rule regarding these powers. There are absolutely 0 magical abilities available to you during the first 2 jumps.
Wait, none at all?
None. You cannot manifest a single supernatural thing in the mortal world or the 1,000-year world or even the 10,000-year world.
So you can't be a wizard who happens to also struggle with anxiety.
Exactly. A person can only self-refine and unlock these powers once they have completely finalized their supreme transformation. And if you think about it, there's a profound psychological safety mechanism built into that rule.
Oh, it's an ultimate cosmic padlock.
Right.
We talked about how step 1 requires purging all fear, and step 2 requires dissolving the ego and worldly desires.
Yeah.
If you handed 64 magical powers, the literal ability to manipulate the fabric of nature to a mortal who is still trapped by greed or jealousy or panic, the result would be catastrophic.
It would be handing a loaded weapon to a toddler.
Absolutely.
The text posits that absolute power is only safe in the hands of a being who has utterly eradicated the desires that would make them abuse it. The powers are reserved exclusively for someone who acts as a pure, frictionless, ego-free extension of nature.
It implies that the universe protects itself.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you don't get the keys to the cosmos until the cosmos knows for a fact you won't crash the car.
Exactly. But just as we reach this incredible, lofty peak of super celestial beings and magical powers, the author pulls off this fascinating narrative maneuver.
Right, they bring it all back down.
Yeah, they bring this entire cosmic roadmap crashing aggressively back down to Earth and point the finger directly at the reader.
Yeah, the concluding section of the excerpts reveals a really striking level of self-awareness.
It does. The author openly acknowledges a pretty frustrating truth. Giving profound classical lectures about enlightenment is very easy in theory,
Right. The roadmap is mathematically precise. The theory is completely clear.
but actually living it is intensely, agonizingly difficult.
Because humanity is incredibly messy. We cling to our weeds.
We really do.
So, to cut through our tendency to kind of delude ourselves about our spiritual progress, the text presents a rapid-fire, binary diagnostic checklist.
A literal checklist.
And let me tell you, the standards on this list are uncompromising.
The text states it definitively. If you have desire, if you have pursuit, if you have persistence, or if your mind abides in form, you are a mortal. You are not a celestial.
If you cannot rid yourself of physical constraints, mortal. If temporal constraints bother you, mortal.
The ultimate markers of success are laid out so plainly. You must be always happy. You must be always pleasant. You must be always in absolute bliss.
It is the most brutal spiritual performance review imaginable.
Right.
There is absolutely no grading on a curve here. If you harbor even a microscopic shred of worry about like an electric bill you have to pay next Tuesday, you instantly fail the celestial test.
Yeah.
You are dragged right back down to the mortal category.
Exactly.
I just find myself marveling at the sheer audacity of demanding a human being be always in absolute bliss.
It's a huge ask.
Is that standard meant to actually be achievable, or is it designed to constantly keep the practitioner in a state of striving?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this diagnostic section reveals the completely unyielding nature of the Lifechanyuan definition of enlightenment.
Unyielding is a good word for it.
Yeah, becoming a celestial or a Buddha, as the text equates them in this state, is a literal formula. As the author writes, the theory is clear and the roadmap is clear. The text views its own architecture as infallible.
So if you fail, it's not because the instruction manual was wrong.
Exactly.
It's because you refuse to tighten the screw.
The math works. It is only human fallibility, our stubborn biological attachment to the very weeds that choke us, that makes the execution so incredibly hard.
Wow.
The text forces a mirror in front of the practitioner. You know exactly how to transcend, so why are you still choosing to suffer?
That is a staggering question to be confronted with, and we have taken a massive journey through this source material today.
Yeah, you really have.
We started in a mundane backyard, tasked with the agonizing process of pulling the psychological weeds of mortal fear just to, buy a ticket to the 1,000-year world.
Right.
Then we had to break our social conditioning, learning to surrender to the cosmic current so we could find absolute carefree pleasure in the 10,000-year world.
All of it culminating in the ultimate mutation on the Celestial Islands continent, unlocking the 64 permutations of reality and existing purely as instantaneous manifestations of nature itself.
Unpacking this text really forces you to reevaluate the granular moments of your daily routine, because the text makes a profound assertion that directly involves you listening to this right now.
It really does.
It claims that our daily actions aren't just random events. They are simply an expression of our nature and our expanding physical structure.
So even the most mundane things you do, making coffee, sitting in traffic, responding to a frustrating email, are in theory tiny movements within the cosmic dance.
Which leaves me with a thought I want you to really mull over today as you go back out into your very human, very mortal life. If the universe truly is the dance of nature, as this text insists, are all of our daily, exhausting mortal anxieties just us stubbornly refusing to learn the choreography?
It's a great question.
If you decide to wake up tomorrow and completely stop resisting your predestined relationships, if you just let the river carry you without fighting the current, would you actually feel one step closer to the 1,000-year world? It turns out the instruction manual for the universe might actually exist. The real question is whether we have the courage to follow the steps, or if we're just going to keep staring at the thorny weeds in our own garden, wondering why we haven't sprouted wings yet.